Emma Ashford's fingers hovered over her phone screen, her eyes scanning the quarterly report from Ashford Security Solutions for the third time. The numbers were perfect. Too perfect. She'd learned 4 years ago that perfection was usually a mask for something rotten underneath. The memory flashed unbidden. Her father's office, the scent of mahogany and old books, the way his eyes had widened when his most trusted partner walked in with a gun. Emma had been 24, hiding behind the door, paralyzed. She'd seen the pattern in the man's behavior for weeks, but convinced herself she was being paranoid. By the time she'd trusted her instincts, it was too late to warn him. Now, at 28, Emma Ashford was worth $2.3 billion. She'd taken her father's modest cybersecurity firm and transformed it into an empire. But the cost was a mind that never stopped analyzing, never stopped watching, never stopped cataloging every micro-expression and behavioral anomaly in everyone around her. Her therapist called it hypervigilance. Emma called it survival. The car stopped outside Cartier on 5th Avenue. Emma didn't particularly care about jewelry, but her assistant had scheduled this appointment 3 weeks ago for a custom piece to commemorate the company's latest acquisition. Appearances mattered in her world. She stepped onto the sidewalk, her Louboutins clicking against the pavement. The November air bit at her cheeks. Her security detail, 2 men in dark suits, flanked her at a professional distance. She'd analyzed their patterns for 6 months before hiring them. They were clean. Inside the boutique, warm light glinted off glass cases filled with diamonds that cost more than most people's houses. A sales associate approached with practiced elegance, but Emma's attention had already locked onto something else. 3 men stood near the back of the store. The one in the center was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost $15,000. His hands were relaxed at his sides, but there was a coiled energy to him, like a wolf pretending to be a dog. But it wasn't him that made Emma's pulse quicken. It was the man to his left. The bodyguard's right hand kept drifting toward his jacket, not the obvious motion of someone checking a weapon. This was subtler, a tell. His eyes darted to the door every 7 seconds. His jaw was clenched, his breathing was slightly elevated. Emma had seen this pattern before. In the week before her father died, his partner had exhibited the exact same behaviors. The man in the center, the one with the wolf's eyes, turned slightly. For just a moment, his gaze met Emma's, dark green eyes, calculating and cold. Then he looked away, returning his attention to a display of watches. Emma's mind raced through possibilities. This wasn't her business. These weren't her people. The smart move was to select her jewelry, leave, and forget she'd ever noticed anything. But 4 years ago, she'd made that choice. She'd doubted her instincts. She'd told herself she was being paranoid. Her father had died because of it. The bodyguard's hand moved again, this time reaching inside his jacket. Time seemed to slow. Emma saw the shift in his weight, the way his shoulder dropped slightly. She'd taken enough tactical training to recognize the motion. He was drawing a weapon. Emma's body moved before her conscious mind caught up. She crossed the boutique in 6 strides, her heels making sharp reports against the marble floor. The man in the center, the wolf, turned toward her with a frown of confusion. Emma looked directly at him and spoke 2 words, her voice carrying absolute authority. "Don't move." His eyes widened slightly, but to his credit, he froze. Emma's hand shot out, grabbed his wrist, and yanked him sideways just as the bodyguard's hand emerged from his jacket with a pistol. The shot was deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. The bullet hit the wall where the wolf's head had been half a second earlier. Someone screamed. Glass shattered. Emma's security detail reacted instantly, weapons drawn. The traitorous bodyguard's face contorted with rage and desperation. He swung his gun toward Emma, but the wolf moved with shocking speed. His fist connected with the man's jaw with a crack that echoed through the boutique. The gun clattered to the floor. The bodyguard crumpled. For a moment, everything was still. Then the wolf turned to face Emma fully. Up close, she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the way his pupils had dilated with adrenaline. But what struck her most was the expression on his face. Not gratitude, not shock, recognition. "Miss Ashford," he said, his voice a low rumble with the faintest trace of an Irish accent. "We need to talk." Before Emma could respond, the boutique's front door burst open. More men in suits poured in, these ones clearly the wolf's actual security. They moved with military precision, securing the bodyguard, checking the perimeter. One of them, An older man with silver hair and sharp blue eyes approached the wolf. "Sir, we need to leave, now." The wolf nodded, but his eyes never left Emma's face. "I'm Derek Driscoll," he said. "And you just saved my life." Emma's mind was already connecting dots. Derek Driscoll, the name was familiar. She'd seen it in reports, buried in the kind of intelligence that Ashford Security Solutions sometimes gathered for clients who operated in gray areas. Driscoll controlled the Irish syndicate in Manhattan, legitimate businesses on the surface, but everyone knew what lay beneath. "How do you know my name?" Emma asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Something flickered in Derek's eyes. Not quite guilt, but something close. "Because I've been keeping you alive for the past 2 years. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. "What?" Derek's associate, the silver-haired man, made an impatient noise. "Sir, this isn't the time." "Make it the time, Connor," Derek said, his tone brooking no argument. He looked back at Emma. 4 years ago, your father was murdered by his business partner. That partner was working for the Volkov family, Russian mob. They wanted access to your father's security protocols. Emma felt the floor tilt slightly beneath her feet. She'd suspected the murder wasn't just a business dispute, but she'd never been able to prove the criminal connection. "After you took over the company," Derek continued, "you became a target. The Volkovs wanted your technology, your expertise, so I made sure they couldn't touch you." "Why?" The question came out sharper than Emma intended. For the first time, Derek's expression softened slightly. "Because I know what it's like to build something from nothing, to claw your way up from streets that want you dead. I grew up in Hell's Kitchen when it actually meant something. No family, no money, no prospects, just will." He paused. "I recognized that in you. When I learned the Volkovs were moving against you, I couldn't stand by." Emma's analytical mind was working overtime, cross-referencing everything she knew, every piece of data. "You've had people watching me for 2 years." "Yes. That's why the Volkov attempts always failed. The break-in at my office, the car that almost hit me on Park Avenue, the hacking attempt on my personal accounts. All stopped before they could touch you," Derek confirmed. Emma should have been furious. The invasion of privacy was staggering, but she was also pragmatic enough to recognize that she might be dead without it. "And him?" Emma gestured to the unconscious bodyguard. "Liam Murphy. He's been with me for 8 years. The Volkovs got to him 3 months ago. His daughter has cancer. They offered to pay for her treatment in exchange for information." Derek's jaw tightened. "I didn't know he'd moved to direct action until today." Connor O'Brien cleared his throat. "We really do need to leave. The police will be here in minutes, and we don't want this kind of attention." Derek looked at Emma with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Come with me. We need to talk, and it's not safe here. Not anymore." Every instinct Emma had screamed that this was dangerous. Derek Driscoll was a criminal, no matter how he dressed it up. Going with him meant stepping into a world she'd spent her entire life avoiding. But her instincts had also saved his life 20 seconds ago. And if what he said was true, he'd been saving hers for 2 years. "One conversation," Emma said. "Then I make my own decisions." Derek's mouth quirked in something that might have been a smile. "I wouldn't expect anything less." 20 minutes later, Emma sat in the back of a black SUV with windows tinted so dark the interior felt like a cave. Derek sat across from her, Connor beside him. Emma's own security detail followed in a separate vehicle. She'd texted her assistant that she'd been delayed and would be out of contact for a few hours. "Tell me everything," Emma said. Derek leaned back, his large frame somehow fitting comfortably in the confined space. "The Volkov family has been expanding aggressively for the past 5 years. Mikhail Volkov is the current Pakan. He's smart, ruthless, and he understands that the future of organized crime isn't just drugs and guns. It's information, data, technology." "My company," Emma said. "Your company," Derek confirmed. "Ashford Security Solutions has contracts with half the Fortune 500. You protect their data, their communications, their secrets. Whoever controls your company controls access to billions of dollars in leverage." Emma had always known her company was valuable, but hearing it framed this way made her stomach twist. "So why not just kill me and take it?" "Because you're the company," Connor interjected. "Your employees are loyal to you. Your clients trust you personally. Kill you, and the whole thing collapses. They need you compliant, controlled. Or desperate," Derek added. "Grief and fear make people cooperative." The car turned down a street Emma didn't recognize. Warehouses lined both sides, their windows dark and empty. "Where are we going?" Emma asked. "Somewhere we can talk without interruption," Derek said. "My office." The SUV pulled into an underground garage beneath what looked like an abandoned factory. But as they descended, Emma noticed the state-of-the-art security cameras, the reinforced concrete, the armed men at checkpoints. This was no abandoned building. They took an elevator up 3 floors. The doors opened into a space that took Emma's breath away. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the East River, modern furniture that somehow complemented the industrial aesthetic. It was beautiful in a stark, powerful way. "Drink?" Derek asked, moving to a bar cart. "Whiskey. Neat." Emma needed something to steady her nerves. Derek poured 2 glasses of what looked like extremely expensive scotch and handed her one. Their fingers brushed briefly. Emma felt an unexpected jolt at the contact. She took a sip. The whiskey burned in the best way. "So what happens now?" Derek settled into a leather chair across from her. "Now we have a problem. You saved my life in front of witnesses. In my world, that creates a debt. It also creates visibility. The Volkovs will know I was targeted. They'll know you're the reason it failed. That makes you even more interesting to them." Emma had already thought through this. "They'll see me as leverage against you now." "Yes. So I'm in more danger than before. Significantly more." Derek took a drink. "Which is why I'm going to make you an offer." Emma raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "I can keep protecting you from the shadows, but it's getting harder. The Volkovs are getting bolder. Liam's betrayal proves they're willing to turn people close to me." Derek leaned forward. "Or you can learn to protect yourself. Really protect yourself. Not just with technology and security teams, but with the skills you'd need to survive in my world." "You want to train me," Emma said slowly. "In exchange for your expertise. I built my organization through loyalty and fear, but I'm not stupid. I know the future looks like what you do. Digital. Invisible. I need someone who can modernize my operations without destroying what makes them work." Derek's green eyes were intense. "You need someone who can teach you to survive when the technology fails, and all you have is your body and your mind." It was insane. Emma knew it was insane. She should walk out, double her security, maybe even leave the country for a while until things cooled down. But she thought of her father, lying on his office floor while she hid behind a door. She thought of 4 years of looking over her shoulder, of jumping at shadows, of never quite feeling safe despite all her money and all her technology. She thought of the moment in Cartier when she'd moved without thinking, trusting her instincts instead of doubting them. What exactly would this training involve? Emma asked. A small smile played at Derek's lips. Hand-to-hand combat, weapons, tactical thinking, how to read a room the way you read patterns in data. How to make decisions when you have seconds instead of hours. He paused. And in return, you teach me how to make my operation invisible. How to move money, information, and people without leaving digital footprints. Emma swirled the whiskey in her glass, watching the light play through the amber liquid. This would mean spending time together, a lot of time. Yes, in your world, not mine. Part of the training, Derek said. You need to understand how this world works if you're going to survive in it. Emma met his gaze. There was something there, beneath the surface, an attraction neither of them was acknowledging. It would complicate everything. When do we start? Emma asked. Derek's smile widened. Tomorrow, 6 a.m. Wear something you can move in. Emma left an hour later, her head spinning with everything that had happened. In the span of 3 hours, her entire life had shifted. She'd saved a Mafia boss, learned she'd been under protection for 2 years, and agreed to a partnership that would have horrified her 4 years ago. But 4 years ago, she'd been naive. She'd believed that money and technology could keep her safe, that she could stay clean while the world around her got dirty. Now she knew better. The next morning, Emma stood in Derek's warehouse gym at exactly 6 a.m. She wore black leggings and a sports bra, her hair pulled back in a tight braid. Derek was already there, dressed in gray sweatpants and a black t-shirt that showed off arms corded with muscle. Connor O'Brien stood to the side, watching with his sharp blue eyes. First lesson, Derek said, circling Emma slowly. Your body is a weapon, but only if you trust it. You think too much. Thinking has kept me alive, Emma countered. Thinking has kept you paranoid, Derek corrected. There's a difference. Today, we work on instinct. For the next 2 hours, Derek put Emma through drills that left her sweating and shaking. how to break a grip, how to use an attacker's momentum against them, how to identify exits and threats in seconds. Emma's muscles screamed, but her mind felt clearer than it had in years. "You're holding back," Derek said as they faced each other in a sparring stance. "Stop thinking about what might go wrong and commit to the movement." "Easy for you to say," Emma panted. "You've been doing this your whole life." Derek's expression softened slightly. "I have. I got my first black eye at 7 from a kid who wanted my shoes, broke my first bone at 9 fighting off someone who tried to rob me. By 15, I'd learned that the world doesn't care about your fear. It only respects your strength." Emma struck, putting everything into a punch aimed at Derek's midsection. He blocked it easily but nodded approval. "Better. Again." They went 3 more rounds before Derek called a halt. Emma collapsed onto a bench, her chest heaving. Derek handed her a bottle of water. "You did well," he said. "Better than I expected for the first day." "I'm going to be sore for a week," Emma muttered. "Probably." Derek sat beside her, close enough that Emma could feel the heat radiating from his body. "But pain means you're learning." Emma took a long drink of water. "My turn tomorrow. I'm going to show you how vulnerable your digital infrastructure is." Derek's eyebrow rose. "That sounds like a threat." "It's a promise." Emma met his gaze. "You're trusting me with your body. You need to trust me with your systems too." Something shifted in Derek's expression. Respect, maybe. Or interest. Fair enough. Over the next 2 weeks, a routine developed. Mornings in Derek's gym, learning to fight, to shoot, to think tactically. Afternoons in Emma's office, teaching Derek the basics of digital security, showing him how easily his operations could be compromised. Evenings, they often shared dinner. Sometimes in restaurants, Emma chose expensive places where Derek looked slightly out of place despite his tailored suits. Sometimes in holes in the wall Derek knew, where the food was incredible and everyone knew better than to ask questions. They talked about everything. Derek's childhood in Hell's Kitchen, bouncing between foster homes and the streets, Emma's relationship with her father, the pressure of living up to his legacy, Derek's rise through the ranks of the Irish mob, the violence and betrayals that had marked his path, Emma's struggles with hypervigilance, the way she couldn't turn off the part of her brain that was always analyzing, always watching. "Do you ever sleep?" Derek asked one night over Thai food in Emma's penthouse. She'd cooked, surprising him with actual skill in the kitchen. "Not well," Emma admitted. "I wake up 3 or 4 times a night, check my phone, check the locks, check the security feeds." Derek was quiet for a moment. "That's not sustainable." "I know." Emma poured them both more wine. "But I don't know how to stop. My brain won't shut off." "Have you tried not fighting it?" Derek asked. "Maybe the problem isn't that you're vigilant. Maybe the problem is that you're alone." The words hung in the air between them. Emma felt her pulse quicken. They'd been dancing around this for 2 weeks now, the attraction that sparked every time they touched during training. The way Derek's eyes followed her when he thought she wasn't looking. The way Emma found herself thinking about him at odd moments. "Derek," Emma said softly. He stood, crossing to where she sat. For a moment they just looked at each other. Then Derek cupped her face in his hand, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. Emma didn't. Instead, she rose and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. 2 weeks of tension exploded between them. Derek's hands tangled in her hair. Emma's fingers dug into his shoulders. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This complicates things," Emma said. "Everything's already complicated." Derek's voice was rough. "Might as well make it worthwhile." They made it to Emma's bedroom. Later, lying tangled in silk sheets, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Safe. The next morning, Emma woke to her phone buzzing insistently. She grabbed it, blinking sleep from her eyes. 3 missed calls from her assistant, 7 from her head of security. Her heart sank. Something was wrong. She called back. Her assistant answered on the first ring. "Emma, thank God. It's Sophie." Emma sat bolt upright. Sophie, her 22-year-old sister. The one person in the world Emma loved more than anyone. What happened? "She didn't come home last night. Her roommate called me this morning. She's not answering her phone." Emma was already out of bed, pulling on clothes. Beside her, Derek had woken, instantly alert. "I'm on it," Emma said. "Call the police. Send me her last known location." She hung up and turned to Derek. "My sister's missing." Derek was dressed in seconds. "Tell me everything." As they raced to Emma's office, Emma filled him in. Sophie was a graduate student at Columbia, studying social work. She lived in a small apartment in the Upper West Side with a roommate. She was responsible, careful. She wouldn't just disappear, unless someone made her. At Emma's office, she pulled up every piece of data she had: Sophie's phone location history, credit card records, security footage from her apartment building. Derek stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. "What do you see?" Emma's fingers flew across the keyboard. Her phone stopped transmitting at 11:47 p.m. last night. Last location was 2 blocks from her apartment. There's a gap in her movement pattern. She left class at 8 p.m., got coffee at her usual place at 8:30, then nothing until 11:47. 3 hours unaccounted for, Derek said. Emma pulled up more data. Then her blood ran cold. "Derek, look at this." On the screen was footage from a traffic camera. Sophie, walking alone. A black van pulling up beside her. 2 men getting out. And in the driver's seat, visible for just a moment, a face Emma recognized from the intelligence reports Derek had shared with her. Mikhail Volkov. "They took her," Emma whispered. Derek's jaw was tight. "They're using her to get to you." Emma's phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered. "Miss Ashford." The voice was heavily accented. "Russian. I believe I have something that belongs to you." "Volkov," Emma said, her voice deadly calm. "Very good. You're as smart as they say." A pause. "I'm going to make this very simple. You come work for me, or your sister dies. You have 24 hours to decide." The line went dead. Emma stood frozen for a moment. Then something inside her shifted. The panic, the fear, the hypervigilance that had defined her for 4 years, all of it crystallized into something else. Cold, calculated rage. She turned to Derek. "Teach me how to kill someone." Derek's expression was grim. "Emma. Not self-defense, not restraint. How to kill." Emma's voice was steady. "You said I needed to trust my instincts. Every instinct I have says Sophie's life depends on me being willing to do what's necessary." For a long moment, Derek just looked at her. Then he nodded. "Connor, get everyone here. Now." An hour later, Derek's warehouse was full of his people. Connor O'Brien, 6 others Emma had seen before, all of them moving with the same deadly efficiency. Derek stood in the center, addressing them. "The Volkovs have taken Emma's sister. They're using her as leverage. We're getting her back tonight." "Sir," Connor said carefully, "going to war with the Volkovs over this will cost us blood and money." "Then that's what it costs," Derek said flatly. "Emma saved my life. I protect what's mine." Emma felt those words settle into her chest. "What's mine?" Derek turned to her. "We have 12 hours to get you ready. No holding back, no safety measures. You wanted to learn to kill? I'm going to teach you." The next 12 hours were brutal. Derek didn't coddle Emma. He showed her where to strike to disable, where to strike to kill, how to use improvised weapons, how to stay calm when your body was screaming with adrenaline. "Pain is information," Derek told her as they drilled. "Fear is information. Don't try to suppress them, use them." Emma had never been so exhausted in her life. But she also felt more alive than she had in years. At hour 10, Derek pulled her aside. "There's something you need to know. When we go in there, things are going to happen fast. You might see things that change how you see me." Emma touched his face. "I know who you are, Derek. I've known from the beginning." "It's different seeing it," Derek said quietly. "I've done things, Emma. Things that would make you sick if you really understood them." "Then make me understand," Emma said. "Show me your world, all of it." Derek kissed her, hard and desperate. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark. "Don't say I didn't warn you." At midnight, they moved. Derek had tracked Sophie to a warehouse in Red Hook, Volkov's territory. Emma wore tactical gear that Derek had provided, a gun holstered at her hip. Her hands were steady. They approached in 3 vehicles. Connor was coordinating with his usual precision. Emma stayed close to Derek, her heart pounding but her mind clear. "Remember," Derek murmured as they approached the building. "Stay behind me until I give you the signal. Then you do exactly what we trained." Emma nodded. They breached the door with explosive charges. The sound was deafening. Smoke filled the air. Then Derek and his men were moving, and Emma followed. Gunfire erupted. Emma ducked behind a concrete pillar, her breath coming fast. She watched Derek move through the chaos like a dancer, every movement precise and lethal. He wasn't the composed businessman she'd had dinner with. This was the predator, the survivor from Hell's Kitchen. And God help her, she found it magnetic. A man appeared to Emma's left, raising a gun toward Derek's back. Emma's body moved on instinct. She drew her weapon, aimed exactly as Derek had taught her, and fired. The man went down. Emma stared at what she'd done, her hands shaking. She'd killed someone, actually killed them. Derek was there in an instant, his hand on her shoulder. "You did good. Stay with me." They pushed deeper into the warehouse. Emma's mind was clicking through everything, analyzing patterns, exits, sight lines. Her hypervigilance, the thing that had tormented her for years, was an asset here. "Second floor?" Emma said suddenly. "Derek, look at the guard patterns. They're protecting something on the second floor. Southwest corner." Derek followed her logic instantly. "Connor, with me. Everyone else, keep them busy down here." They climbed a rusted staircase. Emma's gun was out, her training overriding her fear. At the top, a door. Derek kicked it in. Inside, Sophie was tied to a chair, her face bruised but alive. Relief flooded through Emma. But Mikhail Volkov was there too, a gun pointed at Sophie's head. "Drop your weapons," Volkov said calmly, "or I paint the walls with her brain." Derek didn't lower his gun. "You know that's not how this ends, Mikhail." "No?" Volkov smiled. "I think it ends with me walking out of here with both sisters. That's twice the leverage." Emma's mind was racing. She saw the angles, the distances, Volkov's finger on the trigger, the way Sophie's eyes were wide with terror. And she saw the pattern. Volkov wasn't watching her. His focus was entirely on Derek. He saw Derek as the threat. He didn't see Emma at all. Emma moved, not toward Volkov, toward Sophie. She threw herself at her sister's chair, tipping it backward just as Volkov pulled the trigger. The bullet whined past where Sophie's head had been a second before. Derek fired. So did Connor. Volkov stumbled back, blood blooming on his chest. But he wasn't dead. His gun came up again, this time pointed at Emma. Emma didn't think. She raised her own weapon and fired 3 times, center mass, exactly as Derek had taught her. Volkov went down and didn't get up. For a moment, the only sound was Emma's harsh breathing. Then she was on her knees, untying Sophie, checking her for injuries. "I've got you," Emma whispered. "You're safe. I've got you." Sophie collapsed into her arms, sobbing. Derek and Connor were already moving, securing the area. But Derek's eyes kept finding Emma, checking that she was okay. 2 hours later, they were back at Derek's warehouse. Sophie was sleeping in a guest room, exhausted and traumatized but alive. Emma stood in Derek's office, staring out at the East River. Derek approached quietly. "You did well tonight." "I killed someone," Emma said. 2 people. "Yes." "I should feel something. Horror, guilt, something." Emma turned to face him, "But all I feel is relief that Sophie's alive." Derek pulled her close. "That's normal. The other feelings will come later. When they do, I'll be here." Emma pressed her face against his chest, breathing in his scent. Leather and smoke and something uniquely Derek. "I can't go back," she said quietly. "To who I was before. The CEO who thought she could stay clean. That person died tonight." "No," Derek said, tilting her chin up. "That person evolved. You're still Emma Ashford. You're just more now." "More what?" "More honest about what the world is. More willing to do what's necessary to protect what matters." Derek's expression was intense. "More mine, if you'll have me." Emma kissed him instead of answering with words. When they finally broke apart, she was smiling for the first time in hours. "We need to talk about what comes next," Emma said. "The Volkovs won't just accept this. We took out their Pakan." "I know." Derek led her to the couch, pulling her down beside him. "There's going to be a war. Short but brutal. Can you handle that?" Emma thought about Sophie, asleep and safe, about the past 2 weeks of training, about the moment in that warehouse when she'd chosen action over paralysis. "With you? Yes." Over the next 2 months, Emma learned exactly what Derek had meant. The Volkovs retaliated hard, bombings, shootings, attempts on both their lives. But Emma also learned that she and Derek together were formidable. Her technology combined with his tactical experience, her analysis of patterns with his understanding of criminal psychology. She redesigned his entire security infrastructure. He taught her to navigate his world with confidence. They were partners in every sense of the word. 3 months after Sophie's rescue, Emma sat in Derek's office going over plans for a new initiative. She'd been feeling off for a week. Tired, nauseous. She'd taken a pregnancy test that morning. Derek walked in, and Emma looked up at him. "We need to talk." He sat down, concerned. "What's wrong?" "I'm pregnant." Derek froze. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face. "You're sure?" 3 tests. "Yes, I'm sure." Emma watched him carefully. "I know this wasn't planned. I know the timing is terrible with everything going on." Derek kissed her, silencing her words. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. "The timing is perfect. Everything I've built, everything I've fought for, it needs to be for something, someone." He placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "This is what I've been fighting for. I just didn't know it yet." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "You're really happy about this?" "Emma." Derek's voice was serious. "I grew up with nothing. No family, no home, no one who gave a damn if I lived or died. I built an empire, but it was hollow. Then you walked into my life and saved me. Actually saved me." He kissed her forehead. "Now we're creating something real, together. How could I be anything but happy?" But happiness in their world was always temporary. A week later, Emma was working late at her office when her assistant buzzed her. "Emma, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent." "Who?" "He won't give his name, but he says to tell you it's about Derek." Every instinct Emma had screamed danger, but she'd also learned to trust her ability to handle threats. "Send him in, but call Derek. Tell him to get here now." The man who entered her office was slight, nervous-looking. Emma recognized him immediately from Derek's files. Liam Murphy, the bodyguard who'd tried to kill Derek in Cartier. "You're supposed to be in prison," Emma said, her hand moving to the weapon she now carried everywhere. "I got out on bail," Liam said quickly. "Please, I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm here to warn you." "About?" "The Volkovs aren't finished. Mikhail had a brother, Alexei. He's planning something big, something that's going to hurt you both where it matters most." Emma's blood ran cold. "What kind of something?" "I don't know details, but I know it involves people close to you, family." Liam's expression was desperate. "My daughter is getting treatment because Mr. Driscoll arranged it after everything that happened. He could have killed me, but he showed mercy. I owe him the truth." Emma's mind was racing. Family. Sophie. When? Tonight. They're moving tonight. Emma was already on her phone, calling Derek. He answered immediately. "Emma, what's wrong?" "Where's Sophie?" "She's at her apartment." "Why?" "Get her. Now. The Volkovs are coming." Emma heard the change in Derek's voice, from concern to lethal in a heartbeat. "On my way." Emma hung up and looked at Liam. "You're coming with me, if this is a trap." "It's not," Liam said. "I swear on my daughter's life it's not." They raced to Sophie's apartment in Emma's car. Emma called Connor, explaining the situation. He promised to have men there in 5 minutes. But 5 minutes might be too long. They arrived to chaos. Sophie's apartment building was on fire. Smoke poured from third-floor windows. People were streaming out onto the street, coughing and crying. Emma's heart stopped. "Sophie lives on the 3rd floor." She was out of the car before it fully stopped, running toward the building. Liam grabbed her arm. "Miss Ashford, you can't." Emma yanked free. "Watch me." She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the firefighters trying to establish a perimeter. Her training with Derek kicked in. "Stay low. Cover your mouth. Know your exits." The stairwell was full of smoke, but Emma could still see. 3rd floor. Sophie's apartment was 3C. Emma's lungs burned as she climbed, but she didn't slow down. She reached the 3rd floor. Flames licked at the walls, eating through cheap wallpaper. The heat was intense. Emma moved down the hallway, checking apartment numbers. 3A, 3B, 3C. The door was locked. Emma kicked it, the way Derek had taught her, putting all her weight behind it. The frame splintered. She stumbled inside. "Sophie!" Emma's voice was raw from smoke. "Sophie, where are you?" A muffled sound came from the back bedroom. Emma rushed toward it, her eyes streaming from the smoke. The bedroom door was also locked. This time, Emma shot the lock off with her weapon. Inside, Sophie was tied to her bed, a gag in her mouth. Her eyes were wide with terror, but she was alive. Emma cut her free with a knife she now carried everywhere. "I've got you. Come on." Sophie was shaking too hard to walk properly. Emma half carried, half dragged her toward the door. But when they reached the living room, a figure blocked their path. Alexei Volkov was bigger than his brother had been, with cruel eyes and a smile that made Emma's skin crawl. He held a gun pointed directly at Sophie. "The sister who saves," Alexei said in heavily accented English. "How touching, but this is where your story ends." Emma's mind calculated angles, distances, possibilities. She was faster than she'd been 3 months ago, thanks to Derek's training. But Alexei's finger was already on the trigger. She couldn't save Sophie and shoot Alexei at the same time. Unless she didn't have to. "You want me, not her," Emma said, keeping her voice steady. "Let her go. I'll come with you. Isn't that what you wanted? Leverage against Driscoll?" Alexei's eyes narrowed. "You think I'm stupid? The moment your sister is safe, you'll fight. Then kill me right here," Emma said. "But you know that's not what your brother would have wanted. He wanted me working for him, my company, my knowledge. You kill me, you get nothing." She saw it. The flicker of greed in Alexei's eyes. He wanted what his brother had wanted. Power, control, technology. "Slowly," Alexei said. "Tell your sister to walk out. You stay." Emma looked at Sophie, her baby sister who she'd protected their entire lives. "Sophie, go. Find Derek. Tell him." Emma's voice cracked. "Tell him I love him." "Emma, no," Sophie was crying. "Go!" Sophie stumbled toward the door, sobbing. Alexei tracked her with his gun but didn't fire. The moment Sophie was through the doorway, Emma moved. She'd spent 3 months learning to trust her instincts, to move without thinking, to use every advantage. Alexei expected her to go for her gun. Instead, Emma threw herself at him, using her smaller size to duck under his arm, her elbow connected with his solar plexus, exactly where Derek had taught her to strike. Alexei gasped, his grip on his gun loosening. Emma grabbed his wrist, twisted with all her strength. The gun clattered to the floor. But Alexei was bigger, stronger. He backhanded Emma, sending her sprawling. Her head cracked against the wall. Stars exploded in her vision. Alexei was on her in a second, hands around her throat. Emma clawed at his grip, her lungs screaming. She could feel consciousness slipping away. Then she remembered Derek's words. "Pain is information. Fear is information. Use them." Emma stopped fighting the panic. Instead, she let it sharpen her focus. Her hand fumbled at her waist, finding the knife she'd used to cut Sophie free. She pulled it out, and with the last of her strength, drove it into Alexei's side. He roared, his grip loosening. Emma sucked in air, her vision clearing. She pulled the knife out and stabbed again. And again. Alexei fell backward, blood pooling beneath him. Emma scrambled away, coughing, shaking. The apartment was an inferno now. Flames blocked the front door. Emma looked around desperately. The window. It was her only chance. She staggered to the window, threw it open. 3 stories up. Below, firefighters were setting up a safety net. "Jump!" someone shouted from below. Emma looked back at Alexei. He wasn't moving. Dead or unconscious, she didn't know and didn't care. She thought of the baby growing inside her, of Derek, of everything she had to live for. Emma jumped. The fall seemed to last forever. Then she hit the net, the impact driving the air from her lungs. Hands grabbed her, pulling her to safety. EMTs surrounded her, checking for injuries. "The baby," Emma gasped. "I'm pregnant. Check the baby." Someone was shouting her name. Emma looked up to see Derek pushing through the crowd, his face a mask of terror and rage. When he reached her, he dropped to his knees, cupping her face. "You're alive," he breathed. "Thank God you're alive." "Sophie?" Emma asked. "Safe. Connor has her." Derek's hands were shaking as he held her. "Don't ever do that to me again." "The baby." "The EMTs are checking now, just breathe. You're safe." Emma let herself lean into Derek's strength. Around them, firefighters worked to contain the blaze. Police were arriving, asking questions. Emma knew she'd have to answer them eventually. But right now, all that mattered was that everyone she loved was alive. At the hospital 3 hours later, a doctor confirmed what Emma desperately needed to hear. The baby was fine. Emma had a concussion, bruised ribs, and minor burns, but nothing that wouldn't heal. Derek hadn't left her side. Neither had Sophie, who was holding Emma's hand so tight it hurt. "I'm sorry," Sophie whispered. "This is all my fault. If I hadn't been—" "Stop," Emma said firmly. This isn't your fault. None of it. The Volkovs did this, and they're done now. Connor appeared in the doorway. Sir, we have a situation. Derek looked torn between staying with Emma and dealing with business. Emma squeezed his hand. Go. I'm not going anywhere. Derek kissed her forehead. I'll be right back. He stepped into the hallway with Connor. Emma could hear their low voices but not the words. When Derek returned 10 minutes later, his expression was grim. What is it? Emma asked. Alexei Volkov is dead. You killed him. Derek sat on the edge of her hospital bed. The Volkov family is in chaos. With both Mikhail and Alexei gone, there's a power vacuum. Good, Emma said coldly. Let them destroy each other. It's not that simple. Derek's jaw was tight. The other families are circling. If we don't act now, someone worse could take control of the Volkov territory. Emma understood what he wasn't saying. This was an opportunity, a chance to reshape the criminal landscape of Manhattan. What are you thinking? Emma asked. Derek looked at her for a long moment. I'm thinking that you just proved you're willing to do whatever it takes to protect what matters. And I'm thinking that together, we could do something no one's ever done before. Which is? Take the violence out of it. Derek's voice was intense. Use your technology, my connections. We could control the criminal infrastructure of this city without the bloodshed. Make it about information, leverage, strategy, not bodies in the street. Emma's mind was already racing with possibilities. A digital empire. With physical enforcement only when necessary, Derek confirmed. We could modernize the whole system, make it cleaner, safer. That's ambitious, Sophie said quietly. Both Emma and Derek had almost forgotten she was there. It's also insane. Maybe, Emma admitted. But insane might be exactly what this city needs. Over the next 6 months, Emma and Derek did exactly that. They used the chaos after the Volkovs' fall to restructure the criminal landscape. Emma's technology allowed them to control information flow, financial systems, communication networks. Derek's reputation and connections gave them the muscle to enforce their new order. It wasn't perfect. There were still fights, still violence. But it was less than before. More controlled. Emma's company continued to thrive, though she'd quietly shifted some of its focus. Now Ashford Security Solutions had a division that specialized in private consulting for organizations that operated in gray areas. Perfectly legal on paper. Incredibly profitable in practice. Her pregnancy progressed. Emma worked from home more often, though she still attended key meetings. Derek was protective to the point of smothering, which drove Emma crazy even as she secretly loved it. Sophie had moved in with them after the fire. She was still shaken but recovering. Emma had enrolled her in therapy with a trauma specialist. She was also teaching Sophie the basics of self-defense and security awareness. I don't want to be helpless again, Sophie had said. Emma understood that better than anyone. 7 months after that night in Cartier, Emma stood in the penthouse she now shared with Derek, looking out at the city lights. Her hand rested on her very pregnant belly. Their daughter, they'd learned. They were having a daughter. Derek came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her carefully. What are you thinking about? How different my life is now, Emma said. A year ago, I was just a CEO, paranoid, isolated, convinced that if I could just be smart enough, careful enough, I could stay safe. And now? Now I know that safety isn't about avoiding danger. It's about being strong enough to face it. Emma turned in his arms. You taught me that. You already knew it, Derek said. You just needed permission to trust yourself. Emma kissed him. We make a good team. The best. Derek's hand joined hers on her belly. And we're about to get even better. 2 weeks later, Emma went into labor. It was fast and brutal. Nothing like the calm, controlled experience she'd read about in books. But Derek was there, holding her hand, and Sophie was in the waiting room, and Emma felt surrounded by love even through the pain. When the doctor placed their daughter in Emma's arms, Emma looked down at the tiny, perfect face and felt something shift inside her. This was what mattered. Not empires or power or revenge. This tiny human who depended on her completely. What should we name her? Derek asked, his voice rough with emotion. Emma had been thinking about this for months. Grace, she said. Grace Ashford Driscoll. Grace, Derek repeated, smiling. It's perfect. Grace was 3 months old when Emma returned to work full-time. She'd set up a nursery adjacent to her office, hired a nanny she'd vetted more thoroughly than any employee, and installed enough security to protect a small country. Derek teased her about it, but his own precautions were even more extreme. Emma was in a meeting when Connor called. "We have a problem." Emma's blood ran cold. Problems in Derek's world were rarely minor. "What kind of problem?" "Liam Murphy. He wants to meet." Emma remembered Liam, the bodyguard who'd betrayed Derek, then warned them about Alexei. "Why?" "He says he has information about a new threat, specifically to Grace." Emma's vision went red. "Where?" An hour later, Emma sat across from Liam Murphy in a secure location. Derek was beside her, his expression unreadable. Connor stood by the door. Liam looked older than Emma remembered. Tired. "Thank you for seeing me." "You have 60 seconds, Derek said coldly. "Talk." "There's a new player moving into the city. Someone from overseas. They're looking to make a name for themselves." Liam's hands shook slightly. "They've been asking about you both, specifically about your daughter." Emma's nails dug into her palms. "Who?" "I don't have a name yet, but I have a contact who might." Liam pulled out a flash drive. "Everything I know is on here. Patterns I've noticed. Connections." Emma took the drive. "Why are you helping us?" "Because Mr. Driscoll gave me mercy when he could have killed me. Because he paid for my daughter's treatment even after I betrayed him." Liam's eyes were wet. "Because I know what it's like to have a child you'd die for. I can't let someone hurt yours without warning you." Derek studied Liam for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Thank you." After Liam left, Emma plugged the flash drive into her laptop. What she found made her blood run cold. Surveillance photos of their home, of Grace with her nanny, of Sophie leaving campus. Someone was watching them, learning their patterns, planning something. "We need to move," Emma said. "Get Grace somewhere safe. Sophie too." "Already arranged," Derek said. "Connor's taking them to a secure location within the hour." Emma looked at him. "And then?" "And then we hunt." Derek's voice was deadly calm. "Whoever this is, they made a mistake. They threatened what's mine." Over the next week, Emma used every tool at her disposal to track the threat. She hacked into surveillance systems, traced financial transactions, analyzed patterns of movement. What she found was disturbing. The threat wasn't from a rival family or a cartel. It was from someone new, someone who called themselves the Architect. And the Architect had been watching them for months. "They know everything," Emma said, spreading printouts across Derek's desk. "Our routines, our properties, our associates. They've been planning this for a long time." "What do they want?" Derek asked. Emma pulled up an encrypted message the Architect had sent to various criminal organizations. "They want to prove that your new system doesn't work, that you can't control crime with technology and strategy. They want chaos." "So they're ideologues," Derek said grimly. "Those are the worst kind." Emma kept digging. The Architect was careful, but everyone left traces. She found a pattern in the timing of their surveillance, always between 3 and 5 a.m. That suggested someone who worked nights. She found a pattern in the locations they chose for observation, always near coffee shops that opened early. She cross-referenced baristas who worked the 4 a.m. shift within a mile of their properties. 37 names. She ran background checks on all of them. 36 were clean. The 37th didn't exist, at least, not in any official database. "Got you," Emma whispered. She traced the fake identity back through shell companies and false addresses. It took 3 days, but finally, she found a real name. Real location. Marcus Chen, former CIA operative, dishonorably discharged for unauthorized operations, currently living in a loft in Brooklyn under a false name. Emma and Derek went to confront him with a team of Derek's best people. But when they breached the loft, it was empty, except for a laptop sitting open on a desk. On the screen, a video feed. Grace, sleeping peacefully in her crib at the safe house. Emma's heart stopped. Beside the laptop was a note in neat handwriting. "You can't protect everyone. Let's negotiate." Emma's phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered. "Miss Ashford. Very impressive detective work." The voice was smooth, educated. "But you missed one crucial detail." "What?" "I'm not trying to hurt your daughter. I'm trying to recruit you." Emma's mind raced. "Explain." "You and Mr. Driscoll have built something impressive. A digital empire with just enough muscle to make it stick. But you're still thinking too small." The Architect's voice held admiration. "I want to expand your model nationally, internationally, and I need your expertise to do it." By threatening my child? Emma's voice was ice. By proving I could, if I wanted to. By showing you that even your formidable security has gaps. A pause. I'm offering partnership, Miss Ashford. Not war. Together, we could reshape organized crime worldwide. Emma looked at Derek. He nodded slightly, trusting her judgment. No, Emma said. Excuse me? I said no. What we built here isn't a model to be exported. It's specific to this city, these circumstances. Scale it up, and you lose the thing that makes it work. Personal accountability, local knowledge, trust. You're making a mistake, the architect said, his voice hardening. No, you are. Emma's voice was steel. You thought I'd be tempted by ambition, by the chance to expand, but you don't understand what motivates me. I don't want to rule the world. I want to protect my family, and you just became a threat to that. She hung up. Derek smiled. That's my girl. Finding Marcus Chen took another 2 days, but Emma was relentless. She tracked him through credit card usage, cell phone pings, facial recognition software. When she finally located him, he was at a hotel in Queens, preparing to flee the country. Emma and Derek went alone. No team, no backup, just the two of them. They found Chen in his hotel room, packing a suitcase. He looked up when they entered, unsurprised. I underestimated you, Chen said calmly. I thought you'd want more. I have everything I need, Emma said. She pulled out her gun, holding it steady. You made a mistake, Chen. You threatened my child. I never would have hurt her, Chen said. The surveillance was just to prove a point. The point is irrelevant. Emma's finger tightened on the trigger. You made my daughter a target. That's unforgivable. For a moment she saw herself 4 years ago, hiding behind a door while her father died, too paralyzed by fear and doubt to act. That woman was gone. Emma fired. Chen dropped, a clean shot to the center mass. He was dead before he hit the floor. Emma lowered her weapon, her hand steady. She felt Derek's presence behind her, solid and reassuring. Are you okay? Derek asked quietly. Emma thought about it. She'd just killed someone in cold blood, not in self-defense, not in the heat of battle. As an execution. She should feel guilt, horror, something. But all she felt was relief that the threat to Grace was over. I'm okay, Emma said, and she meant it. They left the hotel room, wiping down surfaces, taking the security footage. They were good at this now, partners in every sense. 1 year after Emma saved Derek in Cartier, they stood on the balcony of their penthouse. Grace was asleep inside, safe and perfect. Sophie was in graduate school, thriving. The city spread out beneath them, full of lights and life and secrets. Do you ever regret it? Derek asked. Stepping into my world? Emma thought about the woman she'd been, isolated, paranoid, convinced that money and technology could keep her safe from a dangerous world. Now she understood that safety wasn't about walls. It was about being dangerous enough that people thought twice before testing you. Not for a second, Emma said. You gave me something I'd lost. You taught me to trust my instincts, to stop being afraid of who I really am. And who are you? Derek asked, smiling. Emma looked at him, this man who'd built himself from nothing, who'd protected her before she even knew she needed it, who'd stood beside her through violence and chaos and blood. I'm the woman who sees patterns, Emma said. Who knows when something's wrong? Who will do absolutely anything to protect what matters? She kissed him. I'm yours. And you're mine, and God help anyone who tries to change that. Derek pulled her close. God help them indeed. Below them, the city continued its endless dance of light and shadow, crime and justice, chaos and order. Emma Ashford had entered this world to save one man's life. She'd stayed because she'd finally found where she belonged. In the space between the light and the dark, where intelligence met instinct, where technology met violence, where a billionaire and a mafia boss built something that shouldn't work but did, because they understood what few people did. That strength isn't about avoiding danger. It's about facing it head-on, with clear eyes and a steady hand, and neither of them would ever be afraid again. 6 months later, Emma stood in front of a small group of women in a community center in Brooklyn. They were all survivors of crime, victims who'd been let down by the system, women who needed to learn to protect themselves. Emma had started this program 3 months ago. It was funded through a nonprofit she'd established, teaching self-defense, security awareness, and tactical thinking to women from vulnerable communities. Sophie helped run it. So did a few of Derek's people. It was their way of giving back, of making something good from all the darkness. "The most important thing I can teach you," Emma told the women, "is to trust yourselves. You all have instincts, gut feelings about danger. The world teaches us to ignore those feelings, to be polite, to give people the benefit of the doubt." She paused, meeting the eyes of each woman in the room. "Stop doing that. If something feels wrong, it probably is, and you have permission to act on that feeling, to protect yourself, to survive." One woman raised her hand. "But what if we're wrong? What if we hurt someone who wasn't actually a threat?" Emma thought about all the times her hypervigilance had saved her life, about the false positives she'd endured, the embarrassment of overreacting. "Better to be wrong and alive," Emma said simply, "than right and dead." After the class, Emma drove home to find Derek playing with Grace on the living room floor. Their daughter was 10 months old now, crawling everywhere, getting into everything. "How was class?" Derek asked, scooping Grace up as she tried to pull books off a shelf. "Good. We had 12 women today. Sophie thinks we could expand to 2 classes a week." Emma sat beside them, letting Grace grab her fingers. "How was your day?" "Productive. Finalized the deal with the tech union. They'll provide security for their networks. We'll provide physical security for their leadership." Derek smiled. "All legitimate. All above board." It was remarkable how much of their operation was legal now. Oh, there were still gray areas. Still moments when violence was necessary. But increasingly, what they'd built was about information, leverage, and strategic partnerships. The criminal empire of the future looked a lot like a tech company. Emma's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Thank you for the class. You probably don't remember me, but you saved my sister 2 years ago. From Volkov. She's doing better now. And I'm learning to be strong like you. Emma showed it to Derek. He read it and smiled. "You're making a difference." "We're making a difference," Emma corrected. "This is what we built. Together." That night, after Grace was asleep and Sophie had gone to her room, Emma and Derek sat in their bedroom. Emma was working on her laptop, analyzing security protocols for a new client. Derek was reading through financial reports. It was domestic, normal, nothing like what either of them would have imagined a year ago. "I love you," Derek said suddenly. Emma looked up, smiling. "I know." "No, I mean," Derek set down his papers. "I love who you've made me become. Before you, I was just surviving. Building an empire because that's what you do when you claw your way up from nothing. But I didn't have a reason for it." He took Emma's hand. "Now I do. Now everything I do is about protecting this. You, Grace, Sophie, the family we've built, the life we've made." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "You gave me something too. You gave me permission to be strong, to stop apologizing for my instincts, to embrace the parts of myself I'd been taught to suppress." "We saved each other," Derek said. "We did," Emma agreed. "In a luxury store in Manhattan, with 2 words." Derek laughed. "Don't move." "Best command I ever gave," Emma said, kissing him. Outside, the city continued its eternal dance. Somewhere, crimes were being committed. Somewhere, people were making choices that would change lives. Somewhere, a woman was learning to trust her instincts, to be strong, to survive. And in a penthouse overlooking it all, a billionaire and a mafia boss held each other, knowing they'd found something rare. Partnership, trust, love, and the absolute certainty that together, they could face anything. Because Emma Ashford had learned the most important lesson of all, that sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Trust that small voice that says something's wrong. And trust that you're strong enough to do what's necessary. She'd saved Derek Driscoll's life with those instincts. And in doing so, she'd saved her own. Emma Ashford learned the most powerful lesson of her life in a single moment at Cartier. Trust your instincts, trust your strength, and never apologize for protecting what matters most. Her story reminds us that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is listen to that small voice inside that says, something's wrong, and act on it. If Emma's journey inspired you, hit that like button right now. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they think. And subscribe to see more stories of powerful women who refused to be victims and chose to become warriors instead. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Emma's position? Would you have walked away? Or saved him? Remember, you're stronger than you know. Trust yourself. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay strong, and always trust your instincts.